Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another live edition of the Highbury Squad. My attempt at being positive this week, has it worked? I don't know. Maybe these two will help me out here. Here we go. Good evening and welcome to another live edition of the Highbury Squad post-game here. Chelsea 0, the Arsenal 1. Joining me this evening, my co-host, Mr. James Johnstone, a.k.a. LL Cool James 91. Welcome to the show.
Good evening. How are we doing? Morning or afternoon, wherever it is you are.
It's afternoon here and it's evening for our very special guest. We love Mike from You Are My Arsenal. Welcome back to the show, Mike.
Hey, Sophie. Hey, James. How are you?
Pretty good. So as you boys both know, I started off the week labeling it positive week because of all of the craziness going on at the Arsenal. We're living in dark times as fans. Protests planned for the coming week or the week after that. Losing against Unai Emery in the Europa League semi-final. And knowing that the Cronkies aren't going anywhere and neither is Mikel Arteta. So I started the week by trying to infuse positive week. Did a happy hour show yesterday. I don't know. I'm going to start with James here and he can throw it to Mike. James, do you think it's because of me that we've won today? Or do you think it's because of the players who crossed the white line? I don't know. You tell me.
I don't know. I really don't know. They clearly watch because they watch all the podcasts, as you know. They watch the one I contribute to. They watch the one you contribute to. Watch yours as well. You know the player. Well, they're very involved, so they clearly watch. I don't know if they were listening. It sort of seemed that it was more luck than maybe positive vibes and intuition. I mean, isn't it amazing that Arsenal are the only club in the world that will put 3 right backs on the bench but still bring them on? Every single one of them as well. Only us. Only us could. One of the ones that comes on, if it ends up getting injured, so we need to bring another one on as well. It's absolutely amazing.
Mike, what did you make of that team selection? And a lot of people, of course, were losing their minds about like the setup and stuff like that. Talk us through that a little bit.
Well, I think, as I looked at the lineup, Chambers, I think his original intent on the bench was not as a backup to Bellerin. I think it was to be one of the backup 3 in the back in case he needed to make a change there. You know, you don't go. It was clear when you have Holding, Mari, and Gabriel on the starting, you know you're going with a 3 at the back. And I know people were losing their mind and saying, "Oh, Holding has to be a right back." I'm like, he's not a right back. We saw Holding make a cross early in the first half. There's evidence why he's not a right back. But the reality is I think this was a little bit of an admission by Arteta to say, I don't have the players to play a 4-2-3-1 the way I want to play a 4-2-3-1. We're going up against a team that's extremely confident. We haven't won here on the road at the Bridge in 10 years. I'm just going to go back to what was successful and got us through the end of last season, which was that 3 at the back, the 5 defensively, and go from there. I think that's what we saw today. That was the lineup we saw today.
13 points out of 30 against the top 6 this year, James. We've done some stat shows before. Definitely what Mike is saying in terms of adaptation and who was going to play where and what the plan was in terms of subs and stuff like that. Either way, it's the first time I think we've done the double over Chelsea for 17 years. First time we've beaten them there in 10 years. Mike, is that what you said to me earlier? Is it 10 years?
Yeah, I think it's 10 years. I think it was 2011, 5-3. It was the RVP running riot game at the Bridge.
Andre Santos, what a player he is. If you can remember him, what a great player.
Oh my goodness. Texas Gunner. Sophie, what the hell did we just watch? Either way, gotta love doing the double and taking the piss out of the Blues. James, it's not been great. It's been a terrible season, but we're trying to find the silver linings this week. And this is definitely a silver lining thanks to Jorginho.
Yeah. I think he forgot that he didn't get his transfer to Arsenal last summer and was like, oh, I play for the Skim in the Blue, don't I? Oh, what am I doing? I just couldn't believe it till afterwards because I was like, hang on a sec, because I was just watching it going, oh, well, we've got a goal. This is brilliant. Okay. And then all of a sudden when the Martin Tyler over here said, yeah, that shouldn't have counted because it was a pass back. And he's like, the refs and the VAR have fouled with that. And I was like, oh, God, yeah, that's a cracking. I totally just forgot. I was just shocked that somehow, some way we've managed to score a goal against Chelsea.
Can I ask you guys a question? Because one of the things that's coming into chat, and good evening to all 200 of you in live chat right now. Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. Definitely a good result. I'm not sure it's come a little too late for me, Mike and James. There's no doubt, and I think that we all feel that in many ways. But one of the questions here was, I'm trying to find it. Were we lucky tonight, Mike? Or talk me through that a little bit, and then we'll get James's take on it.
Look, I think when you set up to play a counter-attacking style against a team that's performing better than you, there is always an element of luck to it, right? But so you have to take that. I mean, you saw Giroud hit the goalpost. You saw Leno palm it onto that in the last few minutes. There is always an element of luck to that, but there is also an element to tactical planning to that. So I think in the second half they did not get a shot except until they hit the woodwork. They didn't get a shot on target. There's a little bit of a tactical planning to that. To me, that means that you're limiting Chelsea's shots to high risk shots. Right, you're not letting them into the box, which is where I was worried early on. There was a couple times early on in the first half I saw Rob Holding get turned around by some through balls into the space, and he kind of was facing one way, switched to another to go in. But I think that yes, to answer your question simply, yes, but there's also a bit of tactical preparation. You're going to be compact. You're going to try and you want to get the ball out and move out quickly. I don't think we were that effective in that. I mean, I think we were, fortunate that Chelsea, weren't better at shooting. And that's actually been a problem with Tuchel's Chelsea is they've really improved defensively. I was worried that we wouldn't get any chances on goal. But where they have really improved, so they've really improved back there. But where they're still struggling is creativity and creation in the final third.
Yes, Danny, it is Michael. Give him a wave. Danny, give him a wave. Michael, give you a wave. James, the other question that's coming a lot through chat is we saw it against West Brom, and albeit that West Brom are relegated and they're a very poor team this season, but a lot of folks are saying when the pressure is off, this team performs well.
Yeah.
Where's is this players putting pressure on themselves? Is this Arteta? Is it just being in the Premier League? What is it? I mean, clearly everyone did their job today and did it well. And on the show, I've screamed so much with regards to the players is just do your job. What's your take on the pressure coming off and us being able to hold out like this?
Yeah, I think, obviously fans not being there as well is a massive boost for them. There's that pressure off. But I said it to you while we were DMing during the game. I went, it's Polyfiller FC, isn't it? We always seem to just paper over that crack a bit there and roll it through and then go on to whatever's next. Like I said, we're going to be linked with every player under the sun now. The old dartboard's going to come out with all the footballers' faces on it. A journalist is going to throw it, it's going to hit one, and then we're going to be linked with them all summer, and it just starts that merry-go-round. So, yeah, I don't know. I really would love to know the psyche of it all. I'd love to be a fly in the wall in that dressing room, especially tonight after Aubameyang was subbed. Personally, I thought he had a really good game, in my opinion, for what he did off the ball. I thought he held, for someone who's not lauded for holding it up and bringing others in, I thought he was brilliant at that today. I was very impressed.
I saw some fans criticize him when he kind of was upset coming off, because I actually felt for the first time in a long time, he's got a reason to feel a bit aggrieved that he's coming off, because he did all the things today that weren't glamorous, right? Mike and James, he did all the things that a lot of fans have been asking him to do. Would you say that the nodding of the head, I don't want to go too far over the cliff here, Mike, but would you say the shaking of the head is maybe his exasperation as to how things have gone lately this season? And he felt like he put in a decent performance and a little aggrieved to come off. Yeah.
And look, I think, Arteta's trying to manage a player who just got over malaria, and having, I think, Sophie, my oldest son is a goalkeeper, and he suffered
very good one too.
Yeah. And he suffered from salmonella poisoning 3 years ago. And he was in the hospital for 9 days for that. It took him a good month and a half before he was he actually returned to playing relatively soon after he got out of the hospital. But to actually be in any form to look even normal took about 6 to 8 weeks before he was normal. So I think there's an element to that. I also think that I agree with you, everything you said about him. The area where I think Aubameyang doesn't help us is in the press. He's not an effective presser. It's not strong. It's not, and I think that's actually where Lacazette is better. I think Lacazette gives much better energy in the press. It's not an attacking difference here. It's actually a pressing difference here in the defensive side of the game. And I think when you have that little time left, that they're just going to keep lumping the ball in. You want somebody who can actually give that a little bit more energy in the press and force them to maybe release that ball a little bit sooner, so then it's not such a clear ball trying behind the lines. So I think that was part of it. And look, I'll say this. I agree. I think everything Aubameyang did, I think his diagonal movement behind the line was fantastic. I thought early on we were looking at Holding trying to actually make that pass over the line that you usually see Luiz try and do. Right. It just wasn't as good and successful. But I also think and he did hold up the ball better, but also Lacazette is also better holding up the ball. You're trying to kill the game. He's going to win that ball at his feet. And there was that towards the end, I think with 7 minutes left, that's 2 minutes left in the game, but also the stoppage time. There was a play down the right-hand side where Lacazette gets the ball into his feet. He's trying to drive into the corner. He actually wins it off of 3 Chelsea players. That's why you have him out there at this. Is that part of the game that he brings to it as well? Yeah.
I'm going to put this one up, James, from Julian, because look, I think we'll all agree it wasn't a great performance, but it felt like one of the few games where you could see what Arteta was trying to do, because we've always talked about the identity of the team and how we lack it. And this evening, it felt like the players went out there and were very clear about their jobs and what they needed to do. I think not playing with that pressure has everything to do with that. And Julian says, geez, give the players some respect tonight. It wasn't pretty, but they all tried hard and got the win and got the 3 points. James, I think the difference here
Haven't we not just praised Aubameyang?
No, and I know, we have. I think he's talking to people in chat, not us, right? I think that's what Julian's doing here. So I think, a lot of the times, and I will say this, Kevin and Amanda always blame the players, always. And tonight, I would like to give credit to the players because, James, it felt like they played like they gave a shit, and it felt like they were playing for each other for something we haven't seen in a few games.
Yeah, I think the opposition helps as well. All right, it's not a proper, London derby because it's different boroughs, but I think that goes into it. They're in a cup final, they're in the Champions League final. It's just even though they made 9 changes, it's still a scoop. You beat Chelsea, that's a big, that's a big scoop.
They're in the Champions League final and the FA Cup final.
Yeah. So I'm not sat here saying I'm absolutely devastated and that we've won because of how boring it was to play. It's just this whatever way you want to look at it. I'm glad that we've made an adjustment because it shows that he's thought of something here. He's clearly changed his game plan for the opponent that was in front of him. So there's that I'm like, okay, Arteta, you're thinking more than I'll give you credit for, which is good. But you can't say that was a fantastic performance. You just can't. I mean, it was lucky. That's the only word I can say is it was lucky. And you know what? Alex Ferguson, who's touted as the best manager ever in the game, said, "I'd rather have 11 lucky generals than 11 good generals."
So here's the scoop, and good evening to all 420 of you in live chat. We've got Mike from You Are My Arsenal. We've got Mr. James Johnstone here, LL Call James, who's been on the show many times talking tactics. Mike's site, You Are My Arsenal, the podcast, great stuff. Mike is also, are you now an officially professional ref, Mike? Or are you?
I can coach up to college.
Up to college, right?
I can ref up to college. I can coach up to college. I can't ref professionally, and I can't coach professionally.
Yeah. I really wanted these two guys on tonight because they both have. You got James, who's like a younger generation view on tactics and strategy in terms of the Arsenal, and then you got Mike, who's seen a little bit more, but at the same time, both have a great perspective on how we play. And I love the generational point of view as well here. So it's very cool.
Is that you being polite?
No, me too. I'm Generation X. You're Generation X. He's a millennial.
I was about to say,
all good.
Are you just trying to be polite and say I'm over 50 and you know?
I'm 52, so we're good. But the point is this:
are people born in 91 millennials?
Yes, aren't you?
I thought I was before.
No, I think you're a millennial. Well, we'll find out. Someone in chat will let us know. How old are you? Doesn't matter.
29.
29, yeah, you're a millennial.
You're a millennial.
Oh my goodness gracious! I'm old enough to be your mum. I think maybe I don't know. We'll do the maths. But the point is this, you guys.
And I am 29. I'm not 30. I'm 29 until I'm 30. That's how
I love
works.
how you're. Yeah, that
is how it works. So just remind people.
Just drum it in. And as Trevor says, please hit that like button if you dig what you hear, and if you don't, let us know why. We'll still be friends. It's all good. Mike, want to come back because another player who was under fire before this game is Leno, and he's talking about wanting to leave the club. Your son is a goalkeeper. You've trained him. I mean, he's going to go to college to play a goalkeeper as well. Talk to me about Leno tonight. And then is he a keeper? And by mean a keeper, I mean, does he stay? Would you be upset to see him go? It's very hard to find really good goalkeepers in this world in these days.
I personally think he's actually going to stay. Well, let me say, I wouldn't be surprised if he left, but I do think he stays. And let's not forget something. And people tend to forget about this in the whole Leno versus Martinez, Emmy discussion is prior to that injury, Leno was our player of the year last season. He saved our bacon so many times. He saved so many points for this team. And I know Danny's in there, and Danny the GFP and I, we agree. Leno is a good, solid keeper to have. Yes, he has issues, but every keeper has issues. There's very few that don't, right? But the reality is I think, look, if you're a team, we were talking about the psychological portion of the game, that permeates everybody. When everybody's feeling down, everybody is going to make mistakes. Leno's not immune to that. I think Leno is a better keeper, and he shows signs that he is actually being coached and improving on some of the weaknesses of his game, like attacking the ball on corners and set pieces. He's still making mistakes and judgment issues that I see in terms of some positional things that I would fix. But overall, I still think he's a solid goalkeeper. So I'd be fine if he stays. I'd also be fine if he goes, simply because ever since RVP left and Cesc left, I've stopped getting attached to players. I don't get it. I love the players that play for our squad. But if somebody tells me that such and such player is leaving, I'm like, all right, I'll just support the next guy who comes in.
Can I just follow up with you here real quick, Mike, on Leno? Because I think one of the things I've tried to come to his defense for is a lot has chopped and changed in front of him. when you see consistency in teams in the league, look at Chelsea, what happened when Tuchel did take over. He was very decisive about who he wanted to play and how he wanted to play them from the midfield to the back. And there's that trust, isn't there, between, the midfield to the back, but then the gaps. I always felt like there's a Grand Canyon in between our midfield and our back four, but also the fact that we've chopped and changed so much in that back four. Do you think that's hurt Leno this season?
I do. I actually do, because I think me as a coach, the one area in my older teams that I never change is I never change my goalkeeper, my two center backs, and my defensive midfielder, my six, the pivot that sits there in front of them, because that's my spine. That's the solidity. That's what stops a striker from. That's what's making a diagonal run. That's what stops a midfield ball going into a striker's feet. To me, that is where you need to be the most consistent. And in my mind's eye, if you're making changes for a cup game, then you literally take out that four and place them with a different four, because there is a level of consistency, communication, understanding tendencies, right? Understanding how a center back is going to play a ball, where they're going to be. Maybe we're dealing with a multinational team. Maybe you've come up with some sort of verbal communication with that back four that helps you articulate what you need. Because I do think one of the problems with Leno is his communication. I think actually one of the things that I've shown to some of my young goalkeepers, there was a Matty Ryan's first game for us. He was mic'd up. And when I'm trying to teach communicating from the back, from the goalkeeper, I use that video as an example. I think Matty Ryan's very good communicator. The fact that he can talk to in Spanish and, a limited Portuguese, if you will, it suits him well. But I think Leno, with the center backs that he had, Luis and I guess Gabriel would be the partnership you'd want to have there. He's established a level of communication with them, and it works. And that's been ripped up, and look, that's part of the problem we've had with a lot of the team, is that pieces just coming in and out all the time. But I agree with you. I think that's one of the problems he's had. And I do think it kind of makes you doubt yourself, and suddenly the things that are your weaknesses start to become more pronounced.
Right. Everyone give Alan a wave. He's in Texas, and let us know where in the world you are, because we know that you're everywhere. Every continent is covered tonight. James, can you tell me, let's talk. We usually do player ratings, and at this point in the season, I'm not sure if I want to go down the player rating route, right? Because I just don't think it's a smart move at this point. But I want you to pick out, in a game where a lot of people will say it was rancid, because again, we were lacking creativity. We didn't really create too many chances, but it wasn't that type of match. Pick out the positives for me tonight. I want to hear your positives, and then we'll go to Mike.
Yeah, so obviously positive is 3 points. We didn't lose. So get that first one out of the way. No, for me, you spoke with Demian yesterday, and you were saying about the emergence of the younger players that we have. There's only 2 younger players that have done well under this manager, and you can argue that you can argue it really is only one, and that's Smith Rowe, because Saka would play for anybody. You could get the guy that puts the letters through my letterbox as the Arsenal manager tomorrow, and Saka will play for him. So Emil Smith Rowe's improved. Martinelli has just sort of stayed at that level because he's barely played him. Balogun was played a couple of times. Aziz has played 5 minutes or so in the Europa League. So we've got a guy here that doesn't handle the academy well so far. He's going to have to improve that, because I believe he's going to stay. So he's going to have to improve on that, because some of these people can't be kept out. But no, positives on the game. I thought Partey grew into it. I thought he started ropey, but I thought he grew into it.
He did start ropey, didn't he? Some really lazy passes at the beginning.
After he spun Havertz and Mount, that was it. I think in his head he went, "Oh right, I'm back. I'm in the room," type thing. I think he plays really well with El Neni. I think someone put in the comments earlier, it was like African excellence or something.
Yes.
In the middle. Yeah. So I think he plays good with him. If you remember the Man United win, it was them 2 in the middle. It was just a case of, I've got to play my quicker players to obviously outrun and run back when we're getting dominated and overloaded, which I thought them two did really well. Smith Rowe was my man of the match. I know El Neni won it technically on Sky. I don't know if it's different everywhere else. I don't know if they all have to pick the same, but no, I thought Smith Rowe was the best. He rang his socks off for me today, which he normally always does. Yeah. And you talk earlier about the press. That guy's got to be in there. And if Lacazette's in there as well, if he's staying, them two work really well together. And Smith Rowe's even said he loves to play with Lacazette because Lacazette encourages him running further beyond him in that press. Odegaard, for me, there were times where I'm like, you're keeping on to it too long, or you're trying the Hollywood ball. I'm like, just tick it over. Just keep ticking it over. But yeah, Tierney's played really well. I think he ran himself into the ground a bit. I thought he was going to get subbed because he was going down quite a lot, but he played well. I thought Holding played well. I thought Gabriel did really well at the end, but I thought he had a terror. Like I said to you, he was a bit headless. He just looked frightened out there, especially in a 3. I don't think a 3 suits Gabriel at all.
Gabriel is definitely a pickle right now, and I'm going to get to him a little bit later, but I want to stick on the Smith Rowe because, we see so much, Mason Greenwood at United, and rightly so, gets lauded. He's a very good talent. I mean, both feet. He's a very, to me, Greenwood is better than Rashford, right? In terms of raw talent, Rashford is a really good player too.
I can see. Yeah,
you got Phil Foden, who's been lauded, and of course, rightly so. Grealish as well, who's been sensational for Aston Villa this season. We got Saka. Smith Rowe is the player, Mike, that if he can stay fit, and Kev was saying this on the show a couple nights ago, in that he could save us millions and millions of pounds, dollars this season. Because we don't maybe have to go and spend the 50 million on Hussein Aouar that we were going to do last season, or get Odegaard from Real Madrid. We can send him back, but maybe get some cover because he is that injury prone. He's a very, very special player, and he seems to have come into his own this season in more ways than one. Mike, is he your number one guy for next season? Can he be that guy?
Yeah, I think he absolutely could be. He could be that solution. He could really solve a big problem in the middle of the midfield. Look, I think our biggest weakness is the midfield right now. But what I love about Smith Rowe is that he has this desire to keep the ball moving. One of the things that agitates me about, and I generally like Odegaard. I think, Sophie, the last time I was on here, we talked about Odegaard, and I talked about the creativity that he brings. Today, what I was frustrating about him was every time Odegaard got the ball, he would actually stop and look in rather than drive forward. Every time Emile Smith Rowe gets on the ball, his first instinct is to drive into space. And that helps so many players on the field. He's making underlaps. He's making overlaps. He's presenting himself off the ball and on the ball. And look, a player that can drive into space, it just opens it. You're going to see off the ball runs, second man runs, third man runs that develop off of that, and it's going to force the defense to react to that, and they're going to have to either account for him or they're going to have to account for the guy making the run behind them, and that just helps so much. It also helps you if you start. I'd be curious as one of the things I'd be curious as I know we all look at him as a potential creative outlet. But the other thing that I like about him is on the ball driving. He reminds me, there are times when I've seen him take the ball from deep, and I get Santi Cazorla vibes about it. Now, Santi had two-footedness, skill to beat the press with the ball at his feet, but he also drove into space, which made him so effective. And it's one of the reasons I felt that Ozil suffered, was because he didn't have that person doing that for him, and it was expected of him when he was here, right? I love that Emile Smith. I just love a player that wants to take space on and take players on, because it does so much for the team. And I think you're right, Sophie. I think you keep him, you use him, and look, you might still have to get a more seasoned professional that's got a little bit more in their toolbox than him right now. But the reality is him, Saka, these are players you build on. These are now I argue right now, and even into next season, we still can't depend on these young guys to be our savers. You still have to give them seasoned pros around them that can help them continue to develop. But also when you're starting to see a player like Saka right now, who's looking a little bit weary because he's already got, I think somebody I saw tweeted out, he's got like 755 more minutes this season than he had last season, right? He's tiring. You can see it. And it's not to say that he's not any good. He's still very good, even tired. But the reality is you need to have players around him that can support that can fill in when he's not able to deliver on a regular basis. And I think you can get that with the two players of Saka and Emile Smith-Rowe, but obviously that's 2 out of 11 players. Right. So you need additional pros around him. But I agree. I think I'd love for him to get a better chance to be the man on the pitch next season.
Yeah. And James, you agree with that, right? You're
Yeah. I mean, what I was going to say is I agree wholeheartedly on what you're saying about Saka. I'm not comparing them as players because they play totally different positions. But if we're not careful, Saka will become like Michael Owen. Mm-hmm. He's playing too many games at a young age.
Yeah.
He's being targeted. People are going, you need to kick lumps out of him because he does damage. And to be fair, he's a strong lad. He's riding them. Like, he is riding some kickings, but more and more people are going to lump into him, especially next season, because they know how deadly he is. And what you say about Emile Smith-Rowe as well, that's what I like about him is, and I've always liked these players that, for me, it's what they do in their first 2 touches of the ball. Mm-hmm. And Mark Overmars was my hero as a child for that. That was my guy. I was like, as soon as he gets it, within his first 2 touches, he's either going past you or he's giving it to someone running past you and something's happening. Hazard was the same. Messi's got it, but I'm not comparing Smith-Rowe to Hazard or Messi. But it's that hole in the first 2 touch. And there's not a lot of players that get me out my seat watching Arsenal at the moment. But what Smith-Rowe's doing is it excites you. It gets a bit of fire in the belly.
You know what's really interesting, because I know Mike wants to jump in here on that one too, because he's like gagging to go. And it's really, a lot of people have been you've heard the Saka versus Foden debate, but ESR is more of the Foden mold.
Yes,
than Saka.
Right?
Right.
But neither of them come near. Neither of them come near.
No, of course. Foden's
I'm sorry if it upsets Arsenal fans. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but also he's playing with De Bruyne and he's playing with Mahrez and he's playing with Diaz and he's managed by Pep Guardiola. Yeah. It's a totally different ball game. Sorry, Mike. Go on.
No. Look, it's one of the things and I keep tweeting this out about. I'll go to Sophie's little thing about the players. One of the problems I've had with the core group of our players is football intelligence, knowing what to do with the ball before you even have the ball. And Emile Smith-Rowe knows what he wants to do with the ball. That's why those first 2 touches that James is talking about are just so important, right? When I coach young players, we talk about, first of all, you know what you want to do before the ball comes into your feet. Know what you want to do. Know what you have, almost 2 moves planned prior to getting the ball in your feet. And then, I coach my teams because I want them to release the ball. I will coach a 2-touch training session where I'll talk to you. You're going to receive the ball in 1 touch. That next touch, if it's a dribble into space, it's got to be big and it's got to go now to somebody else right after that. We talk about that all the time, but because that's just stuff that is my frustration with a lot of the players on this team is they don't know what to do with the ball when they get the ball at their feet. And the technical, the overall technical quality. Emile Smith-Rowe doesn't suffer from any of that. Saka doesn't suffer from any of that. I don't think Tierney suffers from any of that. I think a lot of the issues I see with Tierney right now are based on the fact that he's in and out of the squad due to fitness. It has nothing to do with the footballer that he is. And that's why I'm going to be interested in how we look next year. I want to see the players we bring in, because I think the type of player you want with the skill sets you want across the different positions, some of the basic qualities are the qualities that Saka, Smith-Rowe, Martinelli, and Tierney all have. And it's the technical quality in their play. It's the smarts in how they play. Those are the things that I think, when we look at players that we're bringing in, those are things that I think Arteta is going to be looking for.
Good evening to everyone in live chat. We're here for another 10 minutes or so. Let us know if you have any questions. Throw them in right now. We have people listening from Uganda, from Australia, from India, from China. We have James, who is from South Africa, but just docked a boat in the United Arab Emirates and is working with his crew. So, James, thanks for tuning in as you're working hard out there as well. From one James to another, Mr. Johnstone. And yes, agreed. Spot on, Mike. Football intelligence is key, 100%. Trinidad, good evening to you as well. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. We've tried to have a positive week here on the Highbury Squad HQ. James, let's talk a little bit about the fact that we're 1 point behind Tottenham. Because if there's anything to get the Arsenal base excited about, it's this. And as I'm trying to be positive this week, look, guys, we have problems. We know we have institutional, systematic issues at the Arsenal. And they're not going to go away overnight. They've been building for years. But when you know, like, the owners, you can say the boycotts and the protests will get the owners out. The owners really are here to stay for now. The manager's here to stay for now. So, James, when we're looking for those silver linings and positives, Tottenham were going to win the league in December. Here we are 1 point behind them. If we're going to be positive, there's a chance that we could still make Europe. How do you see this playing out? What with the games that we have left? Because let's face it, the teams we've got left to play, they're beatable.
Yeah. It's really difficult because Everton have the 2 games in hand, and I think they'll probably beat Villa, if I'm being honest. And then I think once they beat Villa, I can't really see how we're going to get in anyway. So, and then for me begins the conundrum of, do I want to be in this UEFA conference? I'm looking at it and I'm saying, from a business standpoint, it helps. But from my own personal standpoint, I don't want to be in the 3rd tier competition of European football. I would rather have none whatsoever than take part in that. I know fans might enjoy it because they get to go to different places, and obviously, you know, as the world's slowly opening up, it's exciting from that standpoint for them. And then obviously, you know, the Cronkies will love it because that's more extra. It'd be even more games. And I believe we'd only go to the qualifying round. So there's 2 matches there. But that starts as well, I think, quite early after the Euros. I think it's like 9 days after the Euros finishes will be these qualify. That's not enough. We've got a huge summer this summer where we need no distractions whatsoever. Like I said on the podcast that me, you and Kevin did, this is the first summer in years that I can remember where you can literally tear it up and start it again in whatever way you want to start it. Now, the people who've got the job to do that aren't the people that I necessarily want to do it. However, they're going to stay. They're going to stay.
That's it, though, isn't it? They're tasked with it, and this is the situation. So we're hoping they're going to make the right decision.
And this is the thing is that come, you know, November, December, in my opinion, how I would be is if we're not comfortably clear top 4 by at least 6 or 9 points, then I'm going to turn up the heat in terms of, you know, the manager was done for me after the Villarreal game. And people went, you're generous to have given them.
Listen, if we're in a similar situation in November, before the December, you know, fixture congestion hits, there's no doubt that he has to go. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I want to get to some questions for you guys, and then you can summarize like the game if you want at the end. Because...
I wanted to talk about Tottenham real quick.
Oh, okay. Go on, Mike. Jump in about Tottenham.
We're definitely finishing above Tottenham. I mean, first of all, we have Palace and Brighton left. Okay. We have 2 games left, Palace and Brighton. We're winning both of those games. When you look at Tottenham's remaining schedule, they have Wolves, Aston Villa, and Leicester. They're not winning all 3 of those games. As a matter of fact, I guarantee you they could lose all 3 of them. So we'll finish. I just want to say the silver lining for me for this year is we're going to finish above Tottenham.
To be honest with you guys, in hindsight, the worst decision, whether it was monetary, fiscal, whatever it was, the decision that Daniel Levy made to fire Mourinho, it has worked for every other team around them. I mean, Ryan Mason, talk about green. We talk about Arteta being green, but my goodness, sacking the manager before a cup final. I know we have our problems, but my goodness. And they could face losing Harry Kane as well. So who knows? Let's. I just want to run through some questions for you guys as well. Willock's had an amazing, loan deal. It's helped us because his market value's gone up, James. And we'll do these really quickly, more of a quick fire. Do we keep Willock? Do we sell him? Maybe we could get 20 million. What are you doing?
I'd keep him. We ain't got enough goals. we don't score enough goals, especially from midfield. I know Smith Rowe scored tonight, but yeah, if he's tucking like he's tucking at Newcastle, put him with better players around him, like what we're going to have, he might score for us.
Mike, you keeping or selling?
I'm selling.
Yeah,
he's a sub for Newcastle. He's a super sub, and he's done fantastic. But that he's found his level. When he's been here, he just has not been able to replicate that kind of form here now. So I think it's look, at this point right now, I think Newcastle want him. We could probably put them over the barrel and get at least 20 to 25 for him.
I can't see Newcastle spending that kind of money on a player.
No, but someone will, somebody
will.
Yeah, someone will. But
someone will spend
I
that.
can't see Newcastle doing it.
And look, because he's a British player, the market value for British player is
the
higher.
premium. Yeah.
So, I think we cash in now because, look, I think Maitland-Niles we could have cashed in on last summer and his value was higher and he's had a terrible loan. He went to the wrong team because he was, really prickly about playing midfield, and here he is. Here's one for you. Mike, start with you. This has been my biggest beef all season. Do you think, and you could tell from the team selection today, does he even know his team to have picked his best 11 all season? Do you think he's figured that out with two games to go?
No, I don't think he has. And I think part of that is his fault, but I also think it's part of the nature of the players that we have, just the inconsistent form of our players. I think he's still trying to tinker with his philosophy, his style of play. We hear people talking about playing on the margins all the time, that kind of stuff. So I think in that aspect, he hasn't settled on it. But I also think the players are making the decision easier for him because they're just not. I know you don't like to hear this part, but I just think that 2/3 of our squad just isn't any good. And the technical quality kills me. So when you're trying to play. When you're trying to play out of the back and move the ball, and actually I actually saw some good possessive moments out of the back under pressure, under Tuchel's rather aggressive press today, which I was actually impressed by. But when you have players that can't make simple 5-yard passes into feet, it just kills it kills me as a person who coaches young children to play the game. I stress the ability to make a 5-yard pass, overhitting the ball, making the guy receiving the ball take a good touch, put it in there and force him to make a touch, right? To do that. So I think it's a mix of both, Sophie. I think he doesn't know who his best 11 are because of his tactical decisions and the fact that the players just aren't that good for the most part.
And he picks favorites.
Yeah, there's that.
Yes. There was a question up here. I'm going to try and find it. Thanks to everyone who's in live chat. You're throwing out some great questions for the lads before I let them go here. Even if we finish, I think this is an important one. Even if we finish above Tottenham, we'll paper over the cracks for the board. James, you mentioned that earlier. Do you don't think so, Mike?
No, look, and I say this and Sophie, I think you and I both are very familiar with Kroenke here in the U.S., and I've spent a lot of time writing about him, digging up about him. I think, first of all, I have a little bit more faith in Josh, and I say little being by that much more faith in Josh Kroenke running Arsenal than I do in Stan Kroenke running Arsenal. Stan's whole focus is the Rams. I think people need to first move off of that. Josh Kroenke is running Arsenal. Okay. Yes, big decisions are being approved by Stan as the president of KSE, but Josh Kroenke is running Arsenal. Josh is a smart guy. He has slowly turned things around for the other two teams he runs, the Nuggets in the NBA and the Avalanche in the NHL. I I'm cautiously optimistic that what we've heard is a signal to that they've got it, that they've heard it. Now, that doesn't mean I think that they're going to go suddenly spend $200 million on players this summer. I think they understand what they're up against in terms of the frustration of the fans. And I think we're going to see a couple surprises through this summer. So I think I'm cautiously optimistic about where we're going with them for right now. I'm absolutely caveating that and saying I reserve the right to change my mind on that based on what happens through this summer. But I think
I hear you about Josh. It definitely feels like his involvement is, if the Cronkies are staying, and listen, you guys, that doesn't mean that we're happy with everything that's happening. Right. Just don't take it that way. But if the Cronkies are staying, Josh Kroenke really does need to be much more involved because of the reasons that Mike has just stated as well. This may be my favorite comment of the entire season when we ask people to hit the like button. Universal Greek, who comes from, I think, my hood, Palmer's Green, otherwise known as Palmer's Greek. Hit the like button if you can't stand my mother-in-law. I'm not sure it gets any better than that, guys. I really don't. Okay, I'm going to get an impassioned view. Okay, so I don't know. So if you can send me a quote, you guys. I understand that Arteta was very animated in his post-game conference and talked about the media. Is that right? Does anyone have a quote on that?
I'm looking now.
We'll get one. Thanks for the show tonight, Sophie and crew. Good luck studying on your uni exams. That's the most important thing. James, I have a question for you. Should we consider selling either Oba or Laka and get a new striker in the window? What's your take on this? I wanted to circle back. We talked about Oba's shaking head. What's your thought?
I think at least one of them's going. I don't know which one. And it wouldn't surprise me if both went, looking off what happened tonight. Something's not right there. I know he's been ill.
I agree. Something's not right.
There's something really, really not good there. I don't know if it was the fact that Tuchel made his comments during the week about him, and he maybe thought, you keep me on 90 minutes and I score in front of him. I don't know if he had that sort of in him, but at the end, you know, he traded shirts with Silva, didn't he? And he seemed quite cheerful when he was chatting with Pulisic, who obviously
and Giroud. He was chatting with.
Yeah, he was having a good chat with everybody. I don't know. I really, really don't know. I think.
Don't you feel like we've missed the window to sell Aubameyang, whereas Lacazette maybe has more of the market value?
Yeah, definitely. But then, the way that I feel Arteta wants us to play, Lacazette is the better player for it, which pains me to say because obviously Aubameyang, you know, is great, but I really don't know. I really don't know. And it's who do you bring in? Because, you know, people are going, we need like a target man, or we need someone that can hold the. But I don't think that's the way we're going either.
No, I think our evolution. You only need to look at what Pep is doing at Manchester City.
False nine, isn't it, Mike?
It's a false nine. I think, and there was. I was talking with somebody the other day, and we were talking about Pep Guardiola, and actually Arteta's. I think it was just before we played City the last time, and somebody asked Arteta about his lack of a striker up top, and he says, "Well, that's ultimately what Pep has been trying to do. He's actually been trying to develop a squad." Or a way of playing without a true striker in it, to have a false nine. I mean, I don't know that false nine is the way you would call it. He's actually, but he's saying that's where Pep is trying to evolve to, and that they were talking always about going that way. So I think ultimately, I think that's where even Mikel Arteta wants to go to. I think he wants to go, you know, early on when he was here, I don't know if people remember, but you started seeing Maitland-Niles play as an inverted fullback, right? Which was which is a trademark Pep move. Whatever you say, his style of play is going to be. He's going to try and play like Pep in some regards, and I ultimately suspect he wants to get to that false nine up top.
Okay, so the comments from Arteta are, nothing is broken. You can see the spirit. It wasn't like this in the press, and I was so annoyed by that. He was very animated about how he was misquoted about the players not giving 120% from his last interview. I'll have to go back and check that, but it sounded like he said what he said it was. I mean, I heard the audio where he said some players are not just they're not able to reach that level. I don't mind that. I would rather he was a little bit more transparent like that. But my beef is then why have you been selecting these players throughout the season and they've let you down?
He's got to be careful, Sophie, because a lot of fans are starting to say this guy's got a big ego. And normally,
I've been saying it all season, mate.
But normally when you have a big ego, it's to fill a big empty space in your mind.
No, see, I disagree with that. I'm going to disagree with that because there is not a coach at this level, whether they have just started out or not, that doesn't have an ego. I'll tell you, when I coach my teams, I have an ego, especially when I have to deal on the youth level and I'm dealing with a parent that says, my little Jimmy's the next Lionel Messi. And I look at her and say, no, he's really not. I know what the next Lionel Messi looks like, and it doesn't look like your little Jimmy. I have an ego, maybe not on that level, but I have an ego when I coach. The reality,
the ego level of Sir Alex and Pep and Mourinho,
it was always there. It was always there.
No, but they've won at the highest level.
But they even had it before they won anything at the highest level. I mean, because you know what, you're asked to put yourself out there. You're asked to create a philosophy and a culture that a team, you are ultimately responsible. And I'm looking at some comments, additional comments here from Arteta. And this is what I like. There is more acknowledgement that he's, got to get more out of the players. He says, if a player does not give 100%, I'm not here, or the player is not here. This is non-negotiable. He understands where the buck stops, right? But there is always going to be an ego. Why? Because ultimately you have a vision on how things are going to go, how things should play, and you know what it's going to take to get you there, and you don't, and nobody else is in that room with you. Nobody else is in your head, and imagine, people telling you at work, Sophie, that people didn't, that your vision was wrong and that you had an ego, but you know what you were trying to get to. It's that same kind of mentality.
I would rather look, I think we saw his strength. One of my top 5 positives yesterday was his January transfer window, or Adu's, the clubs, his ability to really finally start weeding out all of the Wenger dirt, and really trying to turn this around in so many ways. And I think that's really important. I think, though, his ego has maybe come in the way of dealing with, Pepe a little bit this season. Guendouzi, I would say no, because he's been a bit of a punk. So maybe he deserved to kind of be ostracized.
Have you seen the comment from Ben Stab, by the way? Sorry, yeah. That's proper. That's done me.
This one, little Jimmy. Yeah. I wanted to ask you guys this because we touched on it real quick, and we've got 8 minutes left here with the guys. Get your questions in. You guys have been brilliant tonight. Thank you so much for joining me. We beat Chelsea, and that's a good thing. That's a positive thing. We're still in with a shout to get into Europe, whether it's little Europe or big Europe. We shall see.
Medium Europe. Medium Europe.
Is Arteta overcoaching? 18 months and no fluidity of play. Is Arteta trying to copy a genius like Pep? Geniuses cannot be copied. Listen, we all have mentors. I have mentors from my entertainment career that I've looked up to, and still to this day, they are my mentors. And if I'm in a pickle, I will give them a call. If you don't have a mentor, you need to find one and get one, because life is so much greater with them in it, right? James, I'll start with you and then I'll go to Mike. The false 9 we've talked about, that's probably how he's going to want to play next season. Is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? If he can get the right players and we can perform better like this. I've always said a good manager creates a team in his image, and Arteta has done that half. He hasn't really had all of the players to come in, but he's got Partey, he's got Gabriel, he signed Cedric, he signed Pablo Mari. He's signed enough players to at least turn that a little bit. Talk me through what your thoughts are on what P. Trim's asking.
Yeah, so in terms of overcoaching, he likes a lot of control. I'll say that. He does assert his control. I mean, especially when you're watching without crowd noise, you can hear the guy so much. Cheers, Danny.
Danny.
Even tonight, it was the first time in a long time where it felt like every single run, every single play, I can hear Mikel going, Emil, Orba, you can hear him saying to every single bit, like through that cup run, which paid off. This is the thing. I think we got a lot of players here at the moment that need to guide because they can't naturally lead themselves. There is no leader. I mean, the captain, okay, he's got the armband on, but he flakes out of interviews.
That's very true.
He's got it on, but how much of a captain is he really?
Those water breaks helped Arteta, didn't they? During Project Restart?
Yes, they did. I agree. But we've scored 50 goals this season. Aubameyang last year got 22 on his own. He's got 10 in the league so far this year. If we're going to go for it, I don't think we can go with this false nine because we're not scoring it. We're not scoring enough.
But with the right players, could we?
You could.
No, that's it. But
yeah.
Do I trust us to go and get the right players? I don't. Not with this regime. Sadly.
Mike? Here's my thoughts. My thoughts are, first of all, I remember when Arsene Wenger was here and would never get up on the touchline, and people were complaining that they would love Arsene to get up and control his team and tell his team to where to play. But Arsene's whole style was, I want the players out on the field to just go out and play freely. My training is all about them articulating that on the field. Now we had Emery and we had Arteta, who are probably more the new breed that are a little bit more vocal in where they want to go. Let me tell you something, though. There's no such thing as overcoaching. You want to know why? And this is why, going back to those water breaks, why Arteta was effective in those water breaks. Most players will tell you, especially when there's people in the crowd, they can't hear the coach. Yeah, they can't hear the coach at all. And even in a game where there are no fans, they're so in the moment of what's going on that they may catch a snippet of the coach, right? They might, right? But they're so focused on the task at hand so I don't believe in this idea of overcoaching. I think he's maybe a little bit more vocal when there are stoppages, when there's, a throw in, you'll see him be more animated about where he wants players to be. But because he's seeing, look, any coach is going to, part of what makes a good coach is to see where the potential breakdowns are and trying to fix them. So you try and coach your players in those stoppages to fix things. And I agree with you that he was able to use those water breaks to full effect because he's able to take all the information that he got from up until that moment and say, okay, this is where watch this. And he just did so much better when he was able to have the players near him to articulate what he was going rather than have to shout it over him. So I don't believe in this idea of overcoaching. And I believe you can, at younger ages, you can what we call joystick a player, right? You can actually joystick a player out of being good, but I don't think he's doing that because the words that I'm hearing aren't about telling them to drive forward. He's talking about, hey, good. You hear things like good Alba, Laka, that kind of stuff. It's really just trying to, get their attention. But I doubt they're even paying. A good professional will tell you, I don't hear the players.
Yeah, Kev said that before, like when you see managers pointing and, especially when there's a big crowd, you can't really hear it. Right. Mm-hmm. You've been listening to the Hybrid Squad. It's the Chelsea postgame show. I'm going to get you guys to give me a summary. James, I'll start with you. I think Chickaguna here may have subliminally, read my mind. Give me a summary. I mean, not as short as this, but what's the scoop? What's your take on today? And let me know what you think. Where do we go from here?
Just happy to get the win. Happy to get the result. It puts some of the vocal Chelsea fans back in the box for a bit. Probably until they win both their finals, and then they'll come back and humiliate me. No, I mean we just got to win that. We just got to win the next two games, and then just in the words of Oasis, we got to roll with it. Is it
too little? Is there like a bittersweet feeling tonight because? Mm-hmm. It makes you feel that of some of these performances. Yeah, I know that people say we were shit tonight, but if Mourinho had done this with any of his teams, the press would be lauding him for it. And I'm not an Arteta fan by any stretch of the imagination. And most of the squaddies and listeners, whether you're new or old, you may or may not know this, but I am not a fan at all. But if another manager does this, if Tuchel had done this, he'd be lauded.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
we don't normally get a lot of praise, even when we, I think people have diminished the Invincibles over the years because they're like, well, the Centurions got more points. I'm like, yeah, but they lost games. I don't. You listen back to what you're saying. They lost game. We didn't lose a single game. I'm like, so that's just that's just Arsenal. I don't think we get a lot of praise when we do deserve it. But for me, I look at it and I'm like, just get this season over. And let's get in this rebuild phase and see what we've got starting the new season, because the summer's massive and we've got to get it right. You can't get it wrong.
Mike?
Yeah, look, I think for me, what my takeaway from today was I finally saw some heart. I think you talked about it earlier, Sophie. That kind of heart that we showed where players were kind of playing for something today, what it was that they were playing for, I don't know, whether it was just for each other. That would have won the game against Villarreal. That kind of commitment and heart to each other on the field would have beaten Villarreal. And I think that's what I was missing. And frankly, after the Villarreal, second leg of the semifinal, I was ready to just not watch another game until after this summer, because I was just so tired. I was so tired of, the effort. The lack of effort from this team for me has just been criminal. And finally today I kind of go, okay, maybe there's some hope. And I'm kind of like with James. I just want to see what I'm more interested now at this point to see what the summer beholds. Are we going to really do what we need to do to get out the players that need to get out and bring in the players that we need to kind of fill the gaps? That's kind of where I'm at this point right now.
The ex-Premier League guy, is it Garlic or whatever his name is? He starts on Monday, doesn't he? He comes into the club. So I'm like, you've got to be shitter off the bat, mate. you really have. Like, talk about out of the frying pan and into the fire. Like, you've got you've got a big job. You've got a huge job.
And if I was Arteta, no Willian in the side today, no Xhaka. There were certain players, Bellerin, obviously they came in after, but I think it's time for him to I would say experiment. Yes. I don't know what's going to happen with Balogun and Aziz next season. If they go out on loan, we'll have plenty of time in the summer to talk about that. And I'd love to have you both back. So for this evening, I want to thank you both. And I also just want to let our listeners and remind them to go to footballprizes.co.uk, our good friends over there. You talk about players we want to see at the Arsenal over and over again, and maybe players that can emulate greatness. Tony Adams sign frame shirt, go grab it, get your ticket. I'll be giving a free one away tomorrow. But that's what we want. We want committed players, like Mike was saying, the passion, the care today. That's what I took from it. And, we've criticized the players a lot over the season and Arteta. Tonight, the players really gave their heart in a different way. I know everyone was wanting to see sexy football, but sometimes sexy football isn't the right way to play depending on the opponent. And that doesn't mean that it wasn't right. We got the result. And at the end of the day, it's 3 points and it's a confidence boost. And there's still hope to qualify for Europe. And there's still a chance that we might finish above Tottenham. And that will be sweet. Okay, until tomorrow night, I want to thank Mike. Let everyone know where they can find you, your pod, and all that stuff. You can just find me on Twitter at YouAreMyArsenal. You can enjoy my hot takes with everybody else. Just trying to cause some controversy here and there. So, and then we do a podcast weekly with our host. It's Jessinho. So we look forward. And we've had Jess on the show, and she's epic. And then James, let everyone know where they can find you, mister. And you'll be back, because I'm going to get you back to do some tactical stuff for me at the end of the season as well. Go for it. Let everyone know where they can find you. So it's LL Cool James 91 on Twitter.
And then James Johnston, I'm fucking up my own name. James Johnston Football on YouTube.
We almost went a podcast without anyone swearing, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's my YouTube channel. I will come back, and I haven't made a video for about 4 months, but yeah, I'll probably do one. So
okay,
you know.
and
purely Arsenal
Arteta and the Cronkies won't be doing one. We're stuck with them. So let's all stick together and keep believing. And remember, at the end of the day, we are Arsenal Football Club. And one of you two has to say always Arsenal on the exit. So I'll let one of you do it.
Go for it. Go. No, I done it last time. Go for it, Mike.
Go on, Mike.
Go for it.
I'm on the spot. I can't do it. Go ahead, James. It's all you.
I have to do it. Does Amanda do did she do a thumbs up?
Well, when Mike from the Gooners pod is on, he completely takes the piss. He goes, always Arsenal.
Yeah, he does his Amanda impression. Yeah. His impression's better than mine. I'll just end it. Yeah, always Arsenal, guys. You know.
Always Arsenal.
We'll see you guys tomorrow night. Thanks again to these two epic fellas. Good night, everyone.
Oh, people.